Hey guys, and welcome to this video, a help video on helping you getting started with Magic Leap development in Unity. So I wanted to make this video to save anyone who's trying to develop for Magic Leap in Unity a whole bunch of time searching and trying to find answers to questions. I think this document alone that I've thrown together here would save you days, weeks, maybe even of time trying to figure out how to make things work with Magic Leap in Unity. So hopefully this is helpful, and I will just kind of walk through a few things that took us some time to figure out, but hopefully this will give you a really quick intro to how to get started and some answers to some questions that took us a long time to find the answers to. So just starting off, you will need to make sure that your Magic Leap is signed into the correct account. So if you go to the settings on your device once you start it up and you go to device, you should be able to see an email that it's connected to. You may have to go to another section of the settings to find that, but if it's not in the email that you want it to be in, you're going to have to make sure that's set up right. If it is in the wrong email, I don't know, we tried to get it switched over once when it was in the wrong email and it didn't work very well. We had to do a factory reset. So you have to do if you have to do that, make sure that your Wi-Fi doesn't have some security settings that won't let it work. We ended up having to do a mobile phone hotspot, Wi-Fi hotspot in order to sign into the Magic Leap. So just be aware of that. If things aren't working when you do a factory reset and try to sign into the device, you may have to do a hotspot on your phone for the Wi-Fi. And then download the lab. It used to be called Magic Leap Package Manager, but the lab is kind of their software hub where you can house everything that you need to and download everything you need to in order to develop on the Magic Leap. So if you go to this website I've linked here, it's the developer's website. It's developer.magicleap.com. And I've got it pulled up here, but this is the developer website, and this is where a lot of your questions will be answered, and the things you need, you can find them here. So for example, like what I was just talking about, the lab software package, you can download it here, and it has a bunch of other things in it that will be helpful. And that's where you can download like the Lumen SDK. The Magic Leap uses its own operating system, and so you have to download it and make sure it's interfacing with Unity correctly there. So I would first make sure you're signed into the right account, and then download the lab, and make sure that you've downloaded all the latest software. For example, the latest version of Lumen SDK. You'll need that in order to develop on the Magic Leap. And all of those types of things can be found here on the developer website. If you go to, they're kind of hidden up here, but these are like the 4 huge things that are going to help you. If you go to Learn, it'll kind of walk you through how to do all of this. Some of it won't be in here, or it'll be in a weird order, so that's why I'm kind of simplifying it in my document and in this video. But if you go to Getting Started and then you go to Develop, it should prompt you to download the lab and all those other tools that you're going to need, and Unity if you don't already have it. So that's a good place to start. And then go on your device, and you have to make sure that in Settings under Device and then under Developer, there is a setting that you need to switch on. I think it's called MLDB Bridge, and that's the Magic Leap device bridge, I believe. And it might be Access or something like that, but you have to make sure it's enabled there. And it used to be called Creator, so if you find documentation that calls it that, it used to be called Creator, but I think it's called Developer now. And that enables you to hook your device up to the computer and use the command line tool to, and really it allows you to do any kind of publishing to the device. So if you want to create a program or an app and then publish it to your device, this must be enabled, and it took us a while to figure out. And that's why I say you have to be signed into the right account, because this won't show up if you're not signed into the right account. So that's why the order of these things is the way it is. So once you have that working, then you should be able to start at least publishing what you want. Sometimes we ran into the problem where the device would just not be connected physically for whatever reason, even though everything was plugged in. And I just found that unplugging everything at every junction, so there's quite a few different places where things plug into each other using the hub and all the other cords that it has. I just unplugged everything and plugged it all in again, and it usually worked then. But you can use, once you download the lab on the developer website, so you go here to downloads. Once you develop it, you can see here, I don't know if you can read this, but it says device bridge, and that's something, a command line tool that you can kind of talk to the headset with. So if you go there and type in MLDB devices into the command line tool called, what was that? It's just called device bridge. Then you can know if it's connected or not. It should show up on there if it's connected, and if not, then it's probably a physical connection problem. And then the last thing, as far as getting started, is just be aware before you start that AR development is not the same as VR. So just because something works in VR, or because you had a certain workflow in VR and things were easy and quick, it's not necessarily going to be the same in AR development. I've found, at least in my experience, that AR development's a lot slower, and you have to think a lot more ahead, just because of certain unique challenges. For example, the Magic Leap, because it's allowing you to see your surroundings, it can't really show darkness in a lot of ways. So if you're trying to do like shadows or dark colors, they won't show up very well. So there are a few ways online of people that people have found that make it more doable, but there are certain challenges like that that just don't quite work out how you would hope. So just be aware of that before you get started. Don't have these crazy expectations, and keep the scope of your project small so that you can adjust as you need. And then this is the website I just showed you up here, the developer website. So that's where I would go if you have any questions. One part that I didn't see the first time I went there, if you go back to the main page, so learn is where you can go to like get started and figure out how to develop with Unity. For example, if you go to develop here and then you go down to Unity, it has a section all about how to get started with Unity. And it has some really helpful stuff. For example, I think it's here. If you go to Unity Setup, it has a package you can download that has all the settings already set for you. So all the changes you need to develop in Magic Leap are done for you. And I believe it's here in Unity Setup. Yeah, so these right here, if you go to Unity Setup, and then Unity Project Setup, it has these templates that you can download, and those just make it easy so that you don't have to go through this tutorial and change every single setting that needs to be changed in order for Unity to work with Magic Leap. They have these templates that have those settings pre-made, at least most of them, I believe. So that's a good place to start. And then in that same website, you have the Learn, so the guides I just showed you that kind of can walk you step by step through a lot of things about designing, developing, publishing, and other resources. But even more helpful on some of the more particular and specific problems is this forums section. And I didn't find this for a long time for whatever reason. It must have just missed it, but when I was looking at the developer website. But in the forums you can post your questions, and Magic Leap support wasn't very helpful, at least in my experience, but when you post here they respond really quickly. That was my experience, at least. So if you go to Unity Development and post your question in the forum, then other people can comment on it, and you can read other people's questions. You can search for maybe a question you have, and yeah, I think that's the best way to go about it. So that's very helpful. And then the second place I would go is the Unity's Magic Leap forum. Unity has various forums, but they also have a Magic Leap forum that has some helpful things, although the search function in it doesn't work super well. So, a couple of more specific problems that we experienced. We ran into a lot of problems with certain shaders on assets that we had downloaded not showing up in the headset correctly. Either like they would show up in one eye of the headset and not the other, which was really strange. At first we just felt like it was kind of blurry, but we found by closing one eye and then the other that it was only showing in one eye or the other. And even some of them didn't show up at all in either eye. So I've added the link to this, and I'll put the link in the description of this video, but to this document I mean, but we found something called single pass instanced rendering is what Magic Leap uses to render all of the visuals, and so if your shaders aren't compatible with that, you need to add some code to your shaders to make them compatible. And some of them, even when you add that code, don't work. So, but most of them, this functioned fine, and we were able to see them correctly after we added this code. So, just a note that single pass instance rendering requires some adaptation of your shaders. And I've added another link here of some other methods for changing shaders that wouldn't work with this method. So just be aware that, and maybe even ask before you buy assets, if you're planning on doing that, if they will work with the Magic Leap. Or at least ask if you can get a refund if it doesn't work or something like that. And then don't spend too much time animating them or messing with the assets until you know that they'll show up in the headset, because we spent a lot of time working on things and then we throw them in the headset and they weren't showing correctly and we had to get rid of them. And then one final thing before I end this video, well, one thing unique to the Magic Leap, and then I'll give some general tips for Unity development, but it has a very small field of view. That's just the nature of most AR headsets. But we did find, and as part of that, it has some sharp cutoffs on the visuals, so it just feels really abrupt and not very immersive because the edges are so cut off and so square. And anyway, we found this link to a vignette, it's called, for Magic Leap. Some code that you can add to Unity that softens the edges. It kind of blurs the edges a little bit, so it feels a little more natural when things leave your field of view. So just be aware of that. And then places to get 3D models. The Unity Asset Store has a lot of good ones, but there are also a lot of other websites like TurboSquid, CG Traders, Free, 3D, and Clara.io that have a lot of free models that you can download. I mean, you do need to be aware of like copyright and different things and the rights to use models, but if you're just using it for learning, I don't think it should be too much of a problem. And then sounds, we used a lot of sounds from freesound.org for like sound effects and things, and then the music we used, Epidemic Sound has some royalty-free songs that you can use in the background of your app, and it offers a free trial. And if you have some characters you want to animate, you can go to Mixamo. That's a place that will animate automatically your characters. And then we use the timeline a lot to organize animations. So if you have a lot of kind of presentation things going on or cutscenes or whatever, the timeline is really nice for organizing your animations. But a note on that, some of the times when you moved your animations into the timeline, it would move your object to a different place, which was really confusing. And there are some settings, if you double click on that animation, they're called offset settings on that animation in the inspector. If you mess with those, sometimes that'll fix it, but other times it won't. So just be aware of that. We never really figured out why that happened, but be aware that adding animations into the timeline sometimes will move them, but it's really nice for organizing animations. Okay, well that was kind of a whirlwind, but I hope there was some helpful information in there, and good luck with your Magic Leap development in Unity.